All right, guys. Today's Quadcast episode, this is my podcast. Today's Quadcast episode is how late is too late? A dose response effects of evening exercise on sleep. So essentially, I got to review a bunch of data and studies about how your sleep can be affected by exercise, and we're gonna get to go into that. What you could do, what you should do, how it affects, so on and so forth. So stay tuned. Now you might be wondering who's this guy talking to me about this. Well, my name is John Brown, owner of Empirical Fitness based out of ATX. These are different ways you can follow me, contact me, and hit me up. And this is me in one of my cosplay photos. Feel kind of really cool. I'm cosplaying the legendary Super Saiyan named Broly. He's who I try to embody in my day-to-day. Next, some food for thought as we get started. How does proximity of exercise to bedtime and exercise intensity? So you have two variables that we're looking at. Exercise as it pertains close to bedtime and exercise intensity as it pertains close to bedtime are the two different variables we're looking at that affect bedtime. So what was looked at? This is the name of the study, a dose response relationship between evening exercise and sleep by Leota et al. It came out in 2025. The data utilized came from Whoop, I believe. And in the study, they kind of give information about like, should we even consider this as a study since it wasn't done in a sleep lab? Like, is Whoop's Whoop, the thing that I have right here, this one, is Whoop's armband enough to accurately predict data with regards to exercise intensity and sleep and so on and so forth? And the answer is yes. Whoop is accurate enough, essentially. So the cohort in the study analyzed data from nearly 15,000 people who used Whoop for over a year. The findings demonstrated that there was a dose response relationship between both exercise, exercise intensity, and sleep, and the fact that both low strain and high strain had an impact on sleep that was negative. So there's two variations of exercise that we can think about. We have high strain, so think assault bike, something gruesome, like a 30 on, 90 off kind of rough stuff for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, something like that. We have low strain. We have a woman working out with a band. If you're working out with a band that is yellow and of that color, it is most likely low strain. So what are the findings? A light exercise 2 hours before bed caused small but statistically significant changes in your ability to fall asleep. It took people about 4 minutes longer to fall asleep, and roughly 8 minutes less. I think between eight. I forgot the minute number. Between 8 and 16 minutes, roughly less total sleep. So you're not looking at something too bad. Like like say on the worst end, you're looking at potentially like 20 minutes less sleep. Not great. But also not too bad. Intense exercise in their hand did something different. High maximal strength exercise 2 hours before bed produced much larger effects, approximately 40 minutes longer to fall asleep and 31 minutes less sleep. So you essentially think if you work out hard too close to bed, you're going to get at least an hour less of sleep. On the and for me personally, I actually find that like a little bit like worse off. Like for me, like the closer I work out or I work out towards bed, like the worse off my sleep is, especially like high strain. So like an hour, if I only miss like an hour of sleep before workout hardcore before I go to bed, that would be like not too bad from my personal experience. So point six ten thus far. Uh Exercise timing matters. When you're getting your workouts in relation to when you're going to sleep, big factor to consider as far as your training. Whether or not you're training, I don't know, for life, you just want to be a healthy, fit individual, or if you're trying to, push some pretty intense numbers like as an athlete. Exercise intensity, once again, also matters. How hard are you pushing yourself, and when are you pushing yourself in relation to your bedtime? Things to consider. Uh, Exercise, so as stimulus that we can look at, can aid and or disrupt sleep based on when you do it. There's a bunch of studies that exist that can show how exercise can help you auto-regulate your sleep, your stress, and so on and so forth. So it's not like you should avoid exercise if you want to sleep good. That's not what we're saying at all. You might be wondering, what is it about exercise that causes sleep disruption, as far as a point to consider thus far, based on what we've gone over? I'm going to go over that for you. And what solutions are available? I will go over that for you as well. So, those are the points to consider thus far in this presentation. So, what causes the sleep disruption? From an exercise standpoint, whenever you work out, your body temperature is elevated. And as most people, I would say, I've never met anyone who wants to sleep in a warm room. Most people want to sleep in like this cold room, and like you yearn for the other side of the pillow that's always really cool. Because like that coolness helps you kind of like slowly start to wind down and get some sleep. So your body temperature can definitely affect some sleep. And you might be wondering, can a colder room positively impact sleep? I didn't come across that data in this study, but based off what the literature says and what this is, I would assume that a colder, chiller room might help with your ability to sleep after hardcore intense exercise. So one would think. Increased sympathetic activity. Think of that as like excitement. If you push yourself hard, you have a what you would consider excitability, like you're amped up, you're revved up, and oh, like I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure. Like if any of you watching have ever had a personal record set on deadlift, squat, bench press, clean and jerk, snatch, mile time, you might, ooh, you celebrate, like you beat your chest, you do whatever you gotta do, right? And like that's excitability, that's excitement. That near bedtime delays onset, 100%. Might even affect duration if you're too excited, right? So like increased sympathetic activity is definitely going to impact sleep. Increased stress. Stress in general. The cortisol is like our stress hormone that we often refer to when we talk about stress, and that can essentially impact sleep and wake up time. So like I call them refer to as cortisol spikes. If you ever wake up in the middle of the night, you just can't go back to sleep. Cortisol spike. What happens is as you sleep over time during your sleep period, from let's say this is when you're going to sleep, this is when you're supposed to wake up, you're going to have a buildup of cortisol until the cortisol gets so big that you just pop up awake, right? If you're too stressed, if you're under too much duress, even eustress, really, your cortisol buildup happens faster. So instead of like, let's say this is an 8 hour window when you're supposed to wake up, let's say you wake up at like the 4 hour window. You wake up halfway before you're supposed to go to sleep, right? And you're up for like hours, and then you go back to sleep and you gotta wake up again because you know you'll have to be adults and go to work. So increased stress can then affect your cortisol, your stress hormone, which then can adversely impact your sleep. There are things you can do, obviously, to mitigate stress. Sleep is one of them. That's usually what they told me when I said I was having issues with my sleep personally. Um, but once again, the things you can do, for me personally, what I learned is magnesium is the mineral that you lose most via stress. So having a diet that has more magnesium in it, as well as like supplementing with it, can be very, very helpful. That's what I found out personally for myself. It's been a game changer for me. Shout out to Jigsaw. That's where I get my supplements from. They've been pretty cool. And their supplements I find works best. They've got two versions of magnesium. They have malate and glycinate. Malate is more of like an energy stimulant. It makes you kind of feel more active and amped during the day. Whereas glycinate kind of brings you down, calms you down, gets you more relaxed. So effects of a poor night's sleep. Um, I've seen like these people kind of talk on like Instagram about how like sleep doesn't affect like muscle building, and technically sleep doesn't affect like the muscle building process because your body has to be able to, because once again like there's a turnover of everything, right? Cells turn over every single day, like they're what do you call cell death? Apoptosis, I think. Right, correct. Essentially, like cells die, you have cell split, you create new cells, so on and so forth. So, like, there are processes that need to happen regardless if you're having minimal sleep, but that doesn't mean sleep doesn't have an effect on your performance. and your performance has an effect on your output, and your output has an effect on how much muscle you build or how well you can perform to build muscle, right? So that is my train of thought whenever I think of how sleep can impact building muscle. Because most people say, or there are some people who say or argue that sleep doesn't affect the muscle protein synthesis of soft tissue, or not the case. Or it doesn't affect muscle protein synthesis, fair, but does it affect your ability to perform? And does your ability to perform then affect how much mechanical tension you can utilize, how much, I'll say strength you can use, how much tension you can utilize, how much force output you can use, and thus how much muscle you build long term. So a single night of poor sleep decreased max strength by like 3%, which isn't like too bad. The person who I read who spoke about this said that they said 3% was more so when looking at like single joint or non-compound complex movements. The theory is, or the educated assumption, hypothesis, whatever you'd like to call it, is that it is 3% for like single joint kind of stuff, but higher for high skilled movements or compound lifts. A single night of poor sleep decreased endurance performance by 6 to 10%, which is a much bigger factor. Right? So that kind of sucks. If you're an endurance athlete or if you're someone who focuses on like endurance or aerobic sports, your poor night's sleep will affect your endurance a lot worse. Impaired sleep affects afternoon performance more than morning performance. So essentially, the longer you've been awake, the worse off you'll be as far as your performance is concerned, which is also unfortunate because most people end up working out or lifting like after work or on the lunch break or something like that. So this is all the data that we've had thus far, and we're kind of going to break down what we can do about it as far as strategy and solutions. Strategies and solutions. So my recommendations, complete your low strain workouts more than 4 hours before bedtime. Doing so should make it that you will not adversely impair, impact, or mess up your sleep, and you get to have good gains and perform even better the next day. Complete high strain workouts 6 to 8 hours before bedtime. Doing so should give you, once again, enough time to recover, chill out, not have so much excitability before bedtime. If you have had a poor night's sleep, shift your workout earlier in the day if you can. If you're an afternoon or evening lifter, try working out on your lunch break. If you're, sorry, if you already work out earlier in the morning, try to put your workout closer to your like wake up time, just so you can still end up performing, like I said, better. Also, another good option, if none of those are options, like flexible training slash auto regulation, meaning like kind of mitigate how intense you're pushing yourself because you won't be able to push yourself as hard because your force output is not going to be as good. Like I said, 3 to possibly like let's say 8 to 10% as far as like complex movement strength being decreased. If you know that, like drop your numbers that day. So if I'm supposed to be repping out 315 on a set of 5 because I feel nice and strong, normally, right? Let's change that and instead let's rep out 300, 295, something like that. Like drop the weight a little bit so you can still push hard and still get results. Or auto-regulating or flexible, you're auto-regulating slash providing a flexibility stimuli to your program so you can still essentially get gains, but not like risk injuring yourself, hurting yourself. And take naps. I think mid morning to early afternoon naps greater than 35 minutes led to better performance and output for like I think like strength, power, and endurance. So if you are forced to work out in the afternoon or evening again after a night of poor sleep, if you can, fit a nap in before it. auto-regulate training a little bit, and you should end up being okay and still able to chase these gains, get these results. So there's something that you just have to understand and kind of deal with. That's what I have to understand and deal with. Life will disrupt your workouts. Life will disrupt your sleep. You got to find a balance. You got to figure out how to adapt and move, because essentially we often chase perfection, and rarely will we have the opportunity to be perfect in our training plan, get the perfect night of sleep. The goal is, instead of trying to shoot for this perfect routine and perfect schedule, how do we use information to best optimize what we can do based off the feedback that we're giving, or the stimulus that we're currently receiving, or the whatever life is throwing at us at this time. Because that's just what life's gonna do, right? Life's gonna impact sleep. If you have kids, your kid might wake up in the middle of the night, have a nightmare. Oh well, your sleep's screwed. You still gotta train the next day. You still got results to chase, right? Like, you still running, if I'm not mistaken. You're watching this podcast. Uh, Life will disrupt your workouts. You wanted to push hard, 4 nights sleep. You wanted to max out the day. You're not maxing out that day, right? Or if you do max out the day, like, figure out what kind, auto regulate what number you're going for, how hard you're going to push, so on and so forth. So the goal is, or what I would recommend for anyone chasing gains, wanting results, is find balance. If you get a poor night's sleep, regulate that. If you get regulate how you can get better sleep in the future. If you get poor sleep, regulate how you can do better on your workouts that day, so that you don't get too thrown off on your team or the results that you're chasing. Nutrition coaching. We at Empirical Fitness are currently offering nutrition coaching. This is one of my 90-day transformations that I made. I usually don't like to be as lean as I am in that photo all the way on the right. It is stress inducing for me, to say the least. But if you're looking to get this lean, if you want to experience this level of shredliness or shreddiness, make sure to scan this QR code, and we can tell you how to get there, how you can best implement strategies to do that, so on and so forth. You may not work with me. You may end up working with someone on my team, depending on when you sign up, if you sign up, and how many spots we have left. We're currently running a discount, so please scan that code, that barcode, if that's something you're looking for. Once again, nutrition coaching. This is not necessarily going to impact your sleep. However, with our nutrition coaching, we often add in habit coaching, and your habits usually also impact your nutrition, but they can't impact your sleep. So if you're someone who struggles sleeping, if you're someone who struggles with your habits, if you're someone who struggles with nutrition, if you're trying to lose weight, get ripped, and get shredded, you need nutrition coaching. So scan this, coming out with us in Empirical Fitness, and get these gains. All right, team, this is the end of this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're a first-time listener, please hit this thumbs up button. It really helps. Leave a comment if you have questions about anything that I've said so far in this presentation, and I would love to answer for you. And obviously, you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel. If you're a long-time listener, thanks for listening and hanging out with me. Also, feel free to leave a comment, because my goal is to engage and interact with people who listen to said Quadcast, and continue to create and build content for you guys that interests you, that you might find informative, that helps you elevate your life, whether you be a general fitness goer or an athlete trying to, chase gold. Yeah, hope you enjoyed this podcast. I'll talk to you in the next episode. Later.